Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, you score.
If we march to
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We're gonna go.
This week on Talk Livy, I'm delighted to welcome current Lions skipper and reserve team head coach Marvin Bartley. Marv, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Been looking to get you on for a wee while, so it's good to get you on finally.
Better late than never, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure this will be one that the fans are desperately looking forward to. But yeah, we'll just jump straight right into it. So Marv, as a youngster, you were picked up by Reading. How did that come about?
I was quite lucky, to be honest with you. You know, I started playing football maybe the year before signing for Reading Academy. So I think I started playing football at the age of like 10. Joined a Sunday League team. Did like a district trial thing as a striker in the first trial, and quickly got moved to centre half. So obviously, you guys have seen my shooting. You know why that happened. But yeah, I was put to centre half, and then I did about 6 months with the district, and then Reading Academy picked me up. So quite a whirlwind start for me, if I'm totally honest with you.
And how did you find it being in the kind of youth academy setup? I know it doesn't always work out for folk, but how did you find that experience?
Extremely difficult, if I'm honest. You know, I'd gone from not liking football at all to the age of maybe 8 or 9, having to kick around with my friends, to join a Sunday League team at 10. And then by 11, I was in an academy, you know, extremely structured, playing against like Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, amongst other teams. And I found it really difficult, if I'm honest. It was a difficult 3 years, you know, looking back on my football journey. And I was delighted when I was released, because I wasn't enjoying it. I wanted to go back to enjoying football with my friends, and you know, that was Sunday League football for me rather than, you know, academy football.
Yeah, you kind of touched on that. It didn't quite work out for you at Reading, but how did you find going from that setup, going back into playing non-league? How did you find that for your development as a player?
That's probably the best thing that's happened to me, if I'm honest. The best thing that happened to me. If I'd have stayed in Reading Academy, say, for another maybe 2 or 3 years, I don't think I'd be sitting in front of you as a professional footballer now, because it was just draining my energy of wanting to play and my enjoyment of the game. You know, that's a massive thing to say when you're talking about, you know, a 13, 14-year-old kid. But that's how I felt. So yeah, coming out back into Sunday League football and then going into non-league was the best thing for me. And you know, if any player is guaranteed a route into professional football, which nobody is, I think the route that I went through was the best one.
Do you think that that's something that a lot of young players don't possibly capitalise on? Obviously, you hear a lot of stories about people being in these academies. Then once they get released from them, maybe there's like, it hits them a wee bit too hard that they don't feel like they can kind of go back to that kind of youth level and then rebuild themselves. Do you think, obviously you've mentioned that that's the best thing that's happened to you. Do you think it's something that a lot of young players should be doing more of?
I think the difficulty for young players now is that everything's talked about being an academy, as it was for me back then. But luckily for me, I had 2 brothers who had played football, so I could have drawn on their experience. I think a lot of pressure is put on by parents now as well. You know, my son or daughter's within an academy, they're going to make it, they're going to be the next best thing. You know, you see some people on Instagram and they're like 12 or 13, shouldn't have Instagram, but they're like professional footballer at whatever club. You know, then they get released and it's heartbreaking. So I think the pressure from almost like from society is making it a lot more difficult for young players now to come out of that. You almost feel ashamed to come out of that, like an academy setup, to go back to like, you know, Saturday or Sunday League football. You almost feel ashamed because, you know, your parents have put a lot of pressure on you and turn when you play here, there and everywhere, and you've got trials here, there and everywhere. And when it kind of goes wrong at an early age, you think, although your parents might never show it to you, the child will think, well, I've kind of disappointed them because they're no longer talking about me in the same light as they were before. So I think the pressure from parents is probably the problem that we have now.
Yeah. You also mentioned there that you played with your brothers. What was that experience like?
It was interesting. I was the best brother, so I didn't, it's a privilege for them rather than me. But no, it was a great honour to play with them. Obviously I look up to my brothers back then, and I still do now. So to play on the same pitch as them was fantastic. We did it at two clubs actually, at Hayes, and then we did it at Burnham. We did it at Burnham for probably 10 or 15 games. Then me and my eldest brother got bombed off. Got told we weren't good enough, and we had to find new clubs. So my middle brother, I think in one hand he was like buzzing, thinking, oh, I'm the best Bartley, and on the other hand he's thinking, they just got to be my brothers. But as I said, it's all part of the journey.
And whilst you were playing non-league, you started attracting some interest from a few EFL clubs, and you ended up arriving at Bournemouth. How did that move all come about?
Well, I was originally meant to sign for MK Dons, so as every footballer knows now, when you start to get good at something, agents start calling you. And I was recommended an agent at that early stage, and I was meant to go to MK Dons. Everything was sorted out. Played a few trial games, did a week-long training period with them as well. And then Martin Allen went from MK Dons to Leicester, I think a few days before I was meant to sign. So it all went quite quiet on that front, and it was the end of the season. So obviously, you're away for close season and whatever else. I remember being I think I was in Zante on a lad's holiday, and I remember I think it might have been Johnny Hayes who signed for Leicester. So Martin Allen was beginning now to make transfers there, and I said to my agent at the time, do you think there was a chance of me going to Leicester? And he's like, yeah, Martin thought highly of you, so possibly. But as I said, it all went quite quiet. I came back from my holiday, still nothing, still speaking to my agent. I've not heard anything. And then suddenly I got a call directly about going into Bournemouth. So it was meant to be a 6-week long trial, but I could only get, I think it was 4 or 5 days off work. So I took the 5 days off work, went down there and trained, and then I played 2 games on the flip side of that. I played against Weymouth and I played against Southampton first. And I remember in the Southampton game, I got cramp after about 20 minutes. No, sorry, the Weymouth game first, got cramp after about 20 minutes. I drove down there after work on a Tuesday, and I was like, wow, I'm struggling here. I'm not going to last till half time, and I'm on trial. So I'm like, do your best, Marv, do what you can. But I had to come off anyway. The manager took me off, and I thought that's the end of it. That's the end of my trial kind of thing. He said to me after, right, we've got Southampton at the weekend. So, come down and play in that game, and then we'll speak after that. So I remember Joe Roach, who's still at Bournemouth now, said to me, how much water and stuff are you drinking? And if I'm honest, I wasn't drinking any water. I was fitting double glazing for a living. So I was eating like pies constantly at lunchtime. You don't like the fizzy Lucasade and whatever else. So Red Bull to try and get you through the day. So there was I was drinking.
Diet of champions, man. Diet of champions.
Exactly. So yeah, he told me to drink loads of water. And I remember on the day of the game, I was like, right, I'm going to drink loads of water and I'm going to be like, I'm going to feel great. So as you know, you down loads of water. I got to the game and my stomach was like, every time I moved, I could hear the water going everywhere. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. So I spoke to Joe before the game. I said, Joe, I can feel this. He's like, well, how much water did you drink? I said, like 2 litres. He's like, what, you've been drinking 2 litres a day since I told you? And I was like, no, just today, just on the way down to Bournemouth. And he's like, wow. Like, I kind of saw in his eyes that, oh, this guy's in trouble. But I went and played that game anyway and still got cramp. So, but I managed to survive till half time. And I thought, this is definitely it now. And I remember after the game, it was Kevin Bond who was the manager. I said, all right, come in and see me in my office. So I went to see him and he handed me an envelope he said, this is your contract. We're going to sign you. Which for me, I was just like, wow, like, how's this happened? I've messed up in 2 trial games. Like I thought. He said, listen, we saw enough within it. We know nerves play a part and you're working and, you're going to be behind fitness-wise, so that's fine. And I remember just signing the contract, didn't know how long it was, didn't know what money I was on. I was just buzzing to be a professional footballer and, that's obviously the start for me, but I didn't care. I didn't care about wages. It could have been a 5-year contract on £3 a week. I had no idea. I signed the contract, got in the car, called my parents, called my brothers rather, and it was a brilliant day.
The £3 would cover the pie in the Lucasade though, wouldn't it? So
yeah, exactly. That's all I cared about, man. The pie van used to come round wherever we were working, whatever site. So that was the important thing.
Did that move allow you to go into full-time football, or were you still working with the double glazing at the same time?
No, that was full-time, yeah. So Bournemouth at this point were in League One, so the same league that Leicester are in. Well, on the flip side of that, yeah, on the way home from Bournemouth, driving home, to see my family after speaking to them, I remember Alan Devonshire called me, who played at West Ham with Martin Allen, said, Marv, like, where are you? And I was like, oh, I'm just going home. I thought he was calling to congratulate me and say, oh, I've just signed a contract. because he's my last non-league manager. He's like, right. He said, just drive up to Leicester. Martin Allen will meet you at the stadium. They want to sign you. I've been trying to do it for like 3 or 4 weeks. And your agent, the guy was called Mark, kept changing the price that he wanted for you. I think when I was going to MK Dons, he was getting like, say, 2.5 grand. Then when it was Leicester and Martin Allen had gone there, he wanted like 10 grand. And Martin Allen was like, no, we agreed a 2.5 grand fee. And I wasn't signed to this guy. But, at this point, I've gone on the high of, becoming a professional footballer to on the phone thinking, wow, I could be at Leicester. And I explained to him what happened. And he was like, he was gutted for me, but he was still happy for me in the same breath because obviously I'd made it. So, it was strange because at 1 minute I was up here and the next minute I felt down. But, when I spoke to my brothers and stuff, they said, listen, if we would have said you're going to be a professional footballer to you last week, you wouldn't have cared where it was. So that's kind of the mindset I had to go with. But yeah, it was full-time football, so it was brilliant for me playing with like people like Darren Anderton and stuff. It was excellent.
Yeah, with that as well, what were the kind of biggest differences you've seen going from non-league to kind of full-time? Obviously, you mentioned that you didn't really like the academy setup. Was it much more different this time around that it was like a proper professional environment?
It wasn't different in that sense. The difference was I was ready for it. Marvin Bartley at 13 or 14 years of age wasn't ready for that. I was much more ready for it when I went into it again as a professional. I had to develop as a person, as a child as well. And I think sometimes being in academies, it doesn't allow you to do that. As I said, I made a decision at maybe 17 or 18. I wanted to give this a massive go to become a professional footballer. And, luckily enough, I was allowed to do that. But as I said, I was prepared for it. Nothing had changed in terms of the structure. But, I was prepared and it made it a lot easier for me.
Yeah, so just going on at your time at Bournemouth there, the club were going through some financial problems during your first couple of seasons. This included after relegation to League Two, starting the season with a 17-point deduction. What was that like?
It was hard to deal with because it was obviously I think my first season there, or maybe my second season. I think first season we were relegated, and then might have been my second season. I can't remember, but yeah, not getting paid and stuff. And as a young player, you're kind of living month to month. My wages there weren't a lot more than what I was getting paid when I was working. It's actually less than I was getting paid for working and playing if you combine the two. So it was difficult, but the PFA came in and I remember a few of the older boys who were on more money, who had obviously long careers, were able to help the younger players like myself and a couple more. But it was difficult in terms of that. But in terms of the -17, I think the best thing about it, we had a lot of young players who were just so hungry to prove their point of being a professional footballer. We didn't really think too much about that. I think that allowed us to maybe deal with it better than maybe an experienced squad.
And it was the start of what was pretty much a fairy tale for Bournemouth. You'd avoid relegation from League Two last couple of games of the season, despite that 17-point deduction, and then the following season win promotion back to League One. How on God's earth did you manage that sort of turnaround from basically the brink to all of a sudden winning promotion and kind of starting, as I say, this magical journey that Bournemouth had been on?
Yeah, as I touched on there, we had a lot of young players who came out of non-league and who'd been given the chance. So we were almost like rough and rugged. We showed no respect to other players within the League Two level. We felt that we had a point to prove also. So like you said, we managed to survive the -17, and then I think in that season with some fantastic form, as you can imagine, being -17 points and staying up. So said if we carry on doing this next season, then we'll have a chance of promotion. And there were clubs in there with bigger budgets than us, with better known players. But as I said, we had that hunger, and we definitely believed in ourselves. We believed in each other, and we showed that in the following season. And it was unbelievable, to get promotion. I remember we did it away at Burton Albion, and it's fantastic to see the Bournemouth fans there, celebrating with us. And that was probably the first time, being a professional footballer. As I said, I had the heartbreak of getting relegated from League One to League Two and then the -17. But that was the first time I felt like, wow, this is what you dream of as a kid. It was absolutely amazing, and all the sacrifice I had made to be in that position, all of a sudden it all felt like it was worthwhile. So yeah, it was a brilliant journey, and obviously I had a brilliant manager also, in helping lead us to do it. But as I said, I think the core of the team were non-league boys, or boys who had been kind of rejected from bigger clubs. And we didn't feel sorry for ourselves, and everyone was pulling in the same direction. And that takes you a long way in football.
Yeah, your form then got you a move to Championship side Burnley in 2011. How did that move materialise?
Well, Eddie Howe went from being our manager at Bournemouth to Burnley, But if I'm honest with you, I'd never expected, he was going to sign me, because I was probably say opinionated, at that age. And me and Eddie used to clash at times, and not on a disrespectful level, like on a professional level, And so when he went, I thought, you know what, he's probably thinking, oh, I'm away from Marv, like my ears can have a rest now. Do you know what I mean? And then it just so happened that it came to the end of that window. So he left, I think maybe say in like the September or October. And then that January window came round, and it got towards the end of the window. And, the club had a call that the Burnley wanted to sign me. And, the club came to me and said, listen, we rejected the bid. We're not going to allow you to go. We were pushing for the playoffs at that point in League One. So, you're going to have to stay here. And I was like, well, listen, that's fine. I said, but, come the summer, what's going to happen? Because I think my contract was up. And I said, listen, we'll look after you, blah, 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 blah. So it was fine. That was kind of the end of it. And I remember I saw a newspaper article the following day, because social media wasn't what it is now. So I couldn't go out and comment on it and put things right. And the chairman had said, like, someone like Marvin Bartley refuses to play for Bournemouth. And I was like, what? Like, you've rejected a bid. You came to me and said it. There's been no argument. It's been absolutely fine. It's been a really short conversation. And then that's gone out. But what he obviously was trying to do is drive the price up. So I think he was always wanting to sell me because obviously, the club still wasn't on a great financial footing. So he wanted to sell me, he wanted to drive the price up. But also, I got on really well with the fans. So I think he wanted to almost put it on me. And the reason that I was going to leave in the end was on me. So I got to deadline day anyway. They continued to reject the bids, which was fine. I was at my house in Bournemouth. Burnley had actually booked me a flight from Bournemouth to Manchester in case a bid was accepted by, I think it was like 3:00. Got to 3:30, 4:00. Bids were still being rejected. That was fine. And then I got a call from the chairman at about, I would say probably about 5:30, 6:00, saying, right, we've accepted the offer, but you've got to get up to Burnley by 11:00. Now, if anyone knows, if your geography is any good, this is a long, long trip. So I remember calling my eldest brother and saying, you never guess what? And he's like, what? I said, they've just accepted the bid, but I can't make it now. There was no more flights for me to get to Manchester. So I'm not going to make it. He's like, right, just get in your car, drive up to, I think I met him at Newbury Services, which is near Reading. He said, I'll drive your car from there up. So I remember meeting my brother, and there was almost a sense of excitement that, I knew what my new contract was going to be. The bid had been accepted. There's an amount of money that was going to change not only my life, but my family's life as well. And my brother, honestly, I don't know how he got me there. It was in my car. I don't know how I didn't get any speeding tickets. Don't know how I'm not banned from the No idea. But I remember we got there at 5 to 11, and I remember running into Turf Moor to sign my paperwork. And this makes me sound old, but I had to put it through like a fax machine to send it across to the FA. And I remember them putting it through at like, it might have been 10:59. The woman like looked at us, like me, Eddie, and Jason Tyndall, and she's like, it's stuck. What? I was like, surely not, man. The amount of things I brought in my mind, I was getting this, I was getting that, and then she's saying the fax was stuck. So I was like, wow. So it got stuck. She goes, hopefully it'll be all right. Hopefully it'll be all right. I'll call the FA in the morning and try and explain. So they put me and my brother into a hotel in Manchester. He had to actually drive back down to work, and I owe him so much. He had to be back down in Reading for work at like 7:00. So he actually took a train down, I think it was, but he said, obviously I'm going to be late. Took a train down there in the morning. So, I got a call from Bournemouth saying, right, you've been fined a week's wages. This is the day after the transfer deadline. I was like, why? They're like, because you're not at training. And obviously my transfer hadn't gone through. So at this point, I was like, wow. I was like, how can you fine me? Like what's happened. Like, this is not my fault. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm coming back down today anyway. But, I was never going to make it. There's like, well, you've been fined a week's wages. I think Burnley were then saying to me, we'll loan you. I think the loan window opened 14 days after back then. So we'll loan you basically to the end of the season with view to a permanent. And I was like, right. So the heartbreak of all I was delighted at, signing for Burnley. Then the heartbreak of being told you've been fined a week's wages. And obviously I was going back to Bournemouth after the chairman had said all of what he said about me. And I remember I got probably about 2.5 hours down the road, and the secretary from Burnley, Simon, said, right, your transfer's gone through. I think when you try and send a fax, there's a proof that basically says a fax was, they tried to send the fax, but it wouldn't send because it got jammed or whatever. They sent that to the FA, they accepted it. So the transfer went through. So, the week's wages that Bournemouth fined me, they actually never ended up needing to pay me. So it was happy days. My new wage came in at the end of that month.
Going from your non-league days and fitting windows to then having that chaos on deadline day, did you ever see that coming?
No, no chance. I never thought I'd be a professional footballer, if I'm honest, when it started to get, later on in life. And then to be bought for the amount of money I was bought for was scary. And then obviously, like you said, that deadline day stuff. I used to watch that on like TV and see, this player going here and there. And then you got me and my brother like racing up to Burnley to try and get a transfer done. I'll never forget it. But no, it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
And you've touched on Eddie Howe. You worked with him at both Bournemouth and Burnley. How big a part has he played on your career?
A huge part. Not only on Marvin Bartley the player, but Marvin Bartley the person as well. He was somebody who obviously had to retire early from football because of an injury, and he was the one who got me first into coaching. I remember we were at Bournemouth, and he was just turned manager at this point. I think he said to me, "What do you want to do after football?" I was like, "After football?" I'm like, I think I was like 22, 23. I was like, "What do you mean? I'm still a baby, man. I've got years left. I'm going to ride this till the wheels come off." And he's like, "Trust me, Marvin, your career will go past in the blink of an eye." And it's like one of those conversations you have with your parents. You're like, "Oh, here we go. Like back in my day, whatever." Cool. So a year of that, I was like, "Listen, I'm not listening to him." And then a year the said it to me again, and the penny actually dropped because that year had gone so quick, like literally so quick. And I was like, wow, like he might be right here. I might start listening to him. So, that he had me having one eye on coaching from them. But, as a manager and what he did for me as a player, helping me out of non-league. And even when he was a coach under the manager who signed me, he used to do a lot of extras with, players like myself and Jason Pearce. He's a captain at Charlton now. So he's been massive in my career, and definitely as a manager and as a coach, I owe him an awful lot.
Yeah, Eddie Howe obviously is one of the managers who's been linked with the Celtic job. Don't want too many comments basically speculating around that, but do you think that his kind of playing style and that is suited to like such a club like Celtic?
Yeah, definitely. I've commented on this before, and if Celtic can get him, then they need to go and do it. That's my answer to it in the short. Like if they can do it, if they can afford it, if he wants to do it, then they should definitely go and get him because it's going to be the closest thing to Brendan Rodgers they'll get.
With that as well, you also worked with Sean Dyche at Burnley. How different was his style of coaching compared to Eddie Howe's?
Chalk and cheese, if I'm honest. And that's the thing with football, and a brilliant thing with football. There's no one way of doing it. They've both been successful managers within their own rights, but so different. Sean Dyche doesn't really do that much coaching. In pre-season, he has the one day that's called, I can't remember what it's called. It's called the Sean Dyche Day. And it's just absolute mayhem. There's no science behind it. There's nothing behind it. You're flipping tires. You're doing crazy runs. But it's brilliant because he just like puts his own stamp on the pre-season. For that one day, he says to sports scientists and everyone else, I don't care what you think. These are all going to do something that I want them to do. And it's character building. You go out there and be like, run. And you'd be like, okay, run where or how far or how long? You say, just run. And it's like, what? But, he's obviously testing you to see, can you do things the Sean Dyche way? But, the man's got such a presence about himself. When he comes into a room instantly, you gravitate to where he's coming from and that instant respect from him. The great thing with me, looking back now, he was a manager that, as I said, wasn't a massive coach, but he realised maybe that's not his strongest part of, him as a manager. So he got great coaches alongside him. And Tony Lockland and Ian Wone also did a little bit, but the three of them work ever so well together. They've all, wherever one's weak, the other one's strong in. So for me, yeah, Sean Dyche has been fantastic, and I think the only reason he's not been linked with bigger jobs is because maybe the style of football that Burnley play. But if he had, no disrespect to them, if he had like a Man City, he's not going to play them the same way that Burnley do now. But obviously, it's horses for courses with him, and he's kept them in the Premier League time after time. So the man deserves a huge amount of respect.
Now that you've got involved in coaching, does it irritate you the stigma that some teams get because they play a certain brand of football over, that sort of Man City style, for example? Everyone would love to play that, but that stigma that some teams get, does that irritate you now that you've got into the coaching side of it?
It's so irritating, and the thing is that some of these people say, oh, like you lot play this certain way, and like I said, they support other teams who play a similar way. As fans, they're all for watching another team do it. Man City's one of the best players in the world, but even they make mistakes in doing it. So the lower you go down in terms of teams or quality of players, the more mistakes that are going to be made. So if you say to a fan of a team that plays, say, a direct style, we're going to play from the back, but we're going to make 10 mistakes a season. It's going to lead to us conceding 8 goals. Are you happy with that? Then they'll be screaming at you, like, what are you doing? Get it forward. You can't win. You actually can't win. Like, no matter what you do, you can't win. You put the ball forward, you're playing long ball. You try and run it out from the back and make a mistake, which you're going to do at times. because you're trying to play in a really difficult style, then what are you doing? Just get the ball forward. So, there's so many opinions in football. I just laugh at them. Like you said, with the stuff that was put out the other day, I kind of made a joke about it. I didn't realise who the guy supported. I thought it was just somebody who did a voiceover, and then someone explained to me. I was like, come on, the cheek. That's why we love social media, eh?
Exactly. Going back to your spell at Burnley, you were a regular on the side, but you kind of fell out of favour and you made the move to Leyton Orient. Was it just the case that you wanted to be playing more regularly that you made that move?
Yeah, the difficult thing for me was Eddie Howe took me up there, and then he left for his own personal reasons to go back down to Bournemouth. And like you said, I was playing in the Burnley team and doing well, and then suddenly, I felt like I was taken out harshly. And one thing that people never understand is that when footballers move away from home and you're playing regularly, everything's hunky-dory. Life's perfect, not too much time to think about things. But that spell that I had there out of the team was very, very difficult for me on a personal level because I began to get homesick. I didn't want to be up there anymore. I just wanted to go back. The amount of times that I kind of spoke to my mum and said, I might just hit this on the head. And this is the age of 25, 26, because I just needed to get out of there. Mentally, I couldn't deal with it anymore because I wasn't playing. And that frustration of not playing when you think you should be playing or you feel like you should be playing or having the opportunity to play is a difficult one. And, I never forget, for the only time during my career, I kind of took my foot off the gas and, in terms of I wasn't playing, so I wasn't doing extras in training to keep myself fit and whatever else. And I never forget, we had Barnsley away. And suddenly I was just going back into the team out of nowhere. And this is not the fault of the manager, this is the fault of me as a person, because I wasn't giving it everything, waiting for my opportunity. And I went and played in that game and I was dragged at half time. And to be honest, if you'd have dragged me after 20 minutes, it would have been fair. I just wasn't in any condition to be playing football. And, it pains me to say that as a professional footballer because I shouldn't be saying that. I've been given such a privileged job and position to be at a club like that. And I let myself down. And that was the only time during my footballing career that I felt that I did that. And, I think that was just the final nail in the coffin for me because I just said, it's just things aren't going to work out for you. At the start, it wasn't your fault, but it's ended with being your fault. And that's the only mistake I've made in football that, if I could change, go back in time, I would make a difference.
Yeah, after around 18 months at Leyton Orient, you made the move to Hibs. What was it that enticed you to Edinburgh, especially with Hibs being in the Championship at that time?
I needed something different. Leyton Orient was crazy, to say the least. We had a Italian owner who came in. Listen, he put a lot of money into that football club, assembled a fantastic squad, but it just didn't work out. And then obviously when results weren't going, the way that he wanted them to, and they should have been, if I'm honest, he began to get more controlling. Coming into the dressing room at half time, coming in at full time, coming in and telling the manager to put a left back up front. Coming in and sacking the manager after you've won a game because he's not listened to him and put the left back up front. So it was a draining time there. And, it gone from being in a playoff final to, even more money thrown at us as players and more players brought in and as a club to relegation. So it was all too much. And I said to myself, I need a challenge now. I need something that's going to be normal in terms of, a well-structured club. But I need a challenge because I've gone from, the end at Burnley was hard for me. The Leyton Orient stuff was brilliant in the playoff season, but then the next season was also really difficult. So I needed something different. And I had clubs down in England wanting to sign me, and they were just, no disrespect to one of the mill clubs that weren't actually going to do anything. And then Graham Matthew called me from Hibs. To cut a long story short, I came up, saw the training ground, the stadium. I saw Edinburgh for the first time, and I was sold on it straight away.
If there's one thing Livi fans know about Marv, it's crazy Italian owners. So we can sympathise with you there. How did you find the level of football up here compared to down south? It's obviously a regular comparison that gets made, especially with the likes of League One, League Two. Yeah,
that's a difficult question because me as a player, I just give 100%. So whether I'm playing in the park with you guys or I'm going and playing for Livingston against Rangers, I'm going to give the same effort. Because that's all I know how to do. That's the way I've been brought up. So people always say to me, what the standard are? I'm not really that sure. Obviously, there's differences in England in the Championship. You get punished a lot more. The forward players are definitely better. That's one thing I would say. Then the majority of the players up here, obviously Celtic and Rangers taken out of that. But it's a lot more physical up here. The game's actually faster. You know, it is more difficult. And, you know, John McGinn has this argument down the road all the time. He's always saying to me that nobody respects the league. But, you know, you've seen some big players come up from England with the mindset of, oh, it's going to be easy, a walk in the park and fail. So for me, you know, they've both got their pros and cons if you were to put them next to each other. You know, as I said, the quality of the strikers down in England get punished a lot more. And maybe it's a little bit more structured as well. You know, I'd probably say there's more coaching goes on down there than up here. With them, as again, that's with the majority of clubs, not all.
Yeah, obviously you touched on John McGinn there. Obviously when he kind of came to Hibs and kind of broke into the first team, did you think that he would ever make this kind of level of being a top player in the Premiership and being linked with moves to go to teams further up the table in England? I know Aston Villa are having a pretty good season, but there is talks that other teams could be enticed to take him. Did you ever think that he would make it to that level?
No, I think it's difficult to say you think anyone would make it to that level, because that is obviously the elite level of football. But John was always a fantastic player. I remember he started as sub in his first game. I think it was away to Dumbarton, and then he was never present in the team after that. But he had the attributes to go on and do really well in football. You know, I'll be a lie to say that I thought he could do what he's done now. But he's obviously progressed from the start to the end of his time at Hibs. You know, and he's such a hard worker. You know, not only is he a good player, but he works on his game an awful lot. And one thing that I always say to people, like, pace is pace and power is power. And John McGinn's one of the most powerful players, you know, that I've played with. And no disrespect to the Premier League in England, but they don't want to defend against that. They don't. You know, players don't want that physical side of things. They want it to be pretty football, and you have it, we have it. And when someone's got that hustle and bustle about them, they always make a huge impact in football, especially in the English Premier League, because no one wants to play against that. No one wants the physical side of things. That's why physical strikers normally do quite well, because players don't want to play against that anymore. So, you know, no, listen, John's gone from strength to strength, and he'll get better. You know, the thing is, John will get better. I definitely believe that. And as you said, you know, I think he's already established himself as a top 8 centre midfielder in the Premier League. And, you know, in a couple of years' time, I think he'll be a top 4 Premier League centre midfielder.
Yeah, McGinn would also be a part of that that team that won the Scottish Cup alongside with yourself. Just how great a day was that, and how special an occasion was that to be a part of?
Again, it's scary. You know, obviously David Gray heading the ball in, and then hearing the roar of Hampden was fantastic. But the next day, the open bus tour that we did was out of this world. You know, so many times I've tried to explain to people about it, and you can't. You know, you really can't. I remember we left the Mayor's Chambers, I think it's called, which is kind of on like a side street. And I remember we turned, you know, onto almost like Leaf Walk and saw the people, and it was just, honestly, it's scary. They were like ants. That's the only thing I can like. If you put a lolly down in the middle of the summer, and the amount of ants you'll see all over it, that's what it was like. It was, and I stood up there and just thought, this is not meant to happen to me. You know, a boy who came into football so late, again, an English boy, you know, only came up to Scotland. I think that was my first year there. You know, how's this happened? Absolutely crazy. Being released at 18 years old from an amateur team, told you're not good enough, to, you know, now doing this, you know, 10 years later or whatever else is scary, absolutely scary. And that's probably made me always have that kind of resilience that, you know, I have to always believe in myself. Even when I was released at 18, I always believed that I would go on and a manager would appreciate me rather at a certain level. And I think that's what stuck with me for my whole career. But yeah, you know, that day there was, I can't even describe it to you, genuinely I can't. And even like think about it now, getting goose pimples, because it was unbelievable.
I remember watching that game, and it's not often you know, Livingston fan, we're rooting for someone, but I've got a couple of pals who are Hibs fans, and it was the way it was done, you know, yeah. As you say, the comeback late on and the David Gray header, it was just like, wow, that's how you win a major trophy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure everyone's hearts could take that again, but yeah, like you said, if you're going to win it that way, last kick of the game. And, you know, the heartbreak that so many obviously Hibs fans had, like you said, you know, your friends will know from various different seasons of thinking they're going to win it, was, you know, it's been so long. But no, it's unbelievable.
In the following season, you helped the club get back into the Premiership, winning the Championship title. How important was that for a club like Hibs to get out of the Championship and back in the top flight, where, let's be honest, they probably should be?
Yeah, well, not as important as I thought it was coming up here, because whoever I spoke to that was a Hibs fan, they said, just win the Scottish Cup for us, win the Scottish Cup. I'll be honest, I had no idea about, how long it had been or anything else. I was coming up here for that first season to get promoted out of the Championship back to the Premier League. But the fans didn't care about that. So I say to them, like, what would you prefer more, like the Scottish Cup or the league? Scottish Cup, 100%. I was like, what? What's going on here? But, obviously we did that in 2016. But yeah, the following season, it was... I don't think the club will mind me saying. I think, if they wouldn't have gone up promoted then they would have been in trouble massively financially. Things would have been cut back hugely. And, obviously, Neil Lennon was brought in to steer that team forward. And, Leanne Dempster and George Craig made a decision to bring Lennon in, which is probably against the grain of the football club, and everything they kind of stand for and with their philosophy. But what they needed was promotion. One thing that man can do is he can create winners. So, it was a brilliant season. Again, it's to end it as champions. It was a fantastic season. And again, it's another medal that I wouldn't have expected. As I said, a few years prior to coming up here to have a Scottish Cup winners medal and a Championship winners medal. They're not two things that I would have ever said that I could get. So it was unbelievable. And obviously my family coming up on the final day and all those sorts of things, getting celebrated with them was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, obviously you touched on Neil Lennon just there. What improvements did he make to your game? And from other managers you worked with, how does he rank up, or is more similar to?
He's probably more similar to Sean Dyche in terms of not a lot on the grass, but he's just a motivator. As I touched on there, he knows how to make people winners, and nothing else will do. How you go about doing it, whatever the style of play is, just go and outscore the other team. All I care about is winning and getting out of this league. And he said to us, the demands are going to be high, training's going to be hard. At times you're going to hate me. He said, come into the season, do you know what? You'll be out of this league. So he said, I don't care what our personal relationship will be at the end of it, because we're getting promoted. That's it. And he said, some of you will find it too hard. The demands will be too hard for some of you. Some of you will fall by the wayside. But one thing I can promise you is that I'll be managing the Premier League next season with this football club. And that was it. That was his initial meeting. So it was either you get on with me now, you get on a boat with me now, or you stay on the land and I'll leave you behind. It's entirely up to you. And, he's true to his word. He's got us promoted.
Not all your experiences at Hibs were positive ones. You experienced some horrific racial abuse whilst playing at Tynecastle. Mm-hmm. Try and explain to us, Marv, how awful is it when you're just doing your day job at the end of the day, being subjected to that sort of abuse? And what do you think needs done to eradicate that? Yeah,
that was an extremely difficult period for me there. It also happened in the home game against Hearts as well, and I sent a tweet. But the instant you're talking about the video, to see that, and again, somebody had sent it to me and said, have you seen this? And, I think the caption was something a lot softer than what was said in the video. It was hard. It was hard, most definitely, to hear somebody, label you in that way because of the colour of your skin. And I've always said the same things. Listen, hate me for, my style of football, hate me for the team I've played for, hate me for just hating me. But one thing that I can't change about myself is the colour of my skin. So to hear somebody, label me like that, and I've done nothing to them, not that that would have made it right or okay, but, just because I played for a rival team, and to think it's okay to almost record that and post it out is even more disturbing. And it was hard. It was hard. And one thing I don't want, this to go out and look like, a lot of Hearts fans got in contact with me. I used to live in a very heavily populated Hearts area. And, 99.9% of them were absolutely fantastic with me. Don't get me wrong, we used to have our banter. And that's, I'm all for that. They used to have their opinions about the game. I used to have my opinions about the game, but that was fine. We all got on and we kind of shook hands or nodded at each other and off we went. But, that video there was a disgrace. And even more of a disgrace was to see, the person who had recorded it get away with it because they hadn't put their face in it. That was even worse. In terms of what can be done about it, it needs to be taken more seriously. As I said, when you can record somebody and say those things and get away with it, I'm not really sure. As I said, because they said his face wasn't in it, but it was linked to all his other accounts. I don't know what more, could be shown to, that is the person. So what we can do about it, I'm not sure. I think, social media, in terms of what's going on there, people should have to have some sort of verification for their accounts. whether it's them or their parents do it for them. And if your account's not verified because you don't have these things or you don't want to verify your account, that's fine. You can't comment on anyone's post other than the people who follow you, because they know who you are clearly, you know. But it's just far too easy to go out and abuse someone, make an account, abuse somebody, and then come off of it. But as I said before, social media account companies don't want to do anything about it. You know, that's the truth. You know, they're happy with the clickbait of people saying, "Oh, you've seen what happened on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook." They don't want to do anything about it, because, as I said, if they made people verify their things, it would change in a day. You know, you'd see the amount of incidents drop significantly. But as I said, it's a numbers game for these companies. So, you know, somebody's skin color or sexuality or religion, that doesn't really matter to them.
Couldn't agree
It
more.
appears that you go basically every week now, especially in England, the Premier League, you see top players being racially abused. It's happened a couple of times for likes of Man United, Chelsea players and stuff like that. Do you think it is kind of a sort of a losing battle because there is no action being taken of it, and it is sort of encouraging these people to keep on doing it because there is really no fear of repercussion?
Yeah, of course. You know, I watch football now, and the first thought in my mind, if a player of colour makes a mistake that leads to a goal or a sending off or his team losing, is that player's going to get racially abused. You know, imagine sitting there watching your television, somebody makes a mistake in a football match, and you're thinking, wow, they're going to get racially abused. It's madness. And people saying, you know, they think it's getting worse. I don't think it's getting worse. It's just being reported more. And now people have their phones where they can screenshot things, or people can record people saying stuff to them. I don't think it's getting worse. It's just being recorded now. There's always been a huge problem. But yeah, again, you know, I've spoken to a few players who's happened to, and I said, you know, showing the person's name or the account that's abused you, I think, is also giving them that sense of, oh, that was me. You know, there's some sick people out there who are doing these things because they want contact with the player. You know, they want the player to screenshot it and put it up and they say to friends, oh, that was me who said that to him. Then they think, wow, what have I actually said here? A lot of people send abuse to, and it's just a profile rather than the person behind it. You know, and these things are done all too easily. Like you said, you know, until it's verified, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. But, you know, the players that I've spoken to, I just said, like, screenshot the messages maybe, but leave the person's profile off it. And hopefully that will slow down the, you know, the few sick individuals that are doing these things. And it's gonna start making people look at social media in a different light. And one thing that I don't want to do is, you know, tie everyone with the same brush, because there's a lot of great people out there on social media who stand up to, you know, people sending these sorts of things when it doesn't concern them. And what I mean by that are people not of colour who stand up to it and say, you know what, that's wrong. You know, so there's people out there that, as I said, that have opinions about football that are different to mine, and I want to make sure I can keep interacting with them. But also you have a worry that, you know, someone's going to actually, you know, racially abuse somebody if they do make a mistake or whatever else. So I just feel like it, you know, that's a sad thing. But I said we can't let the minority, you know, ruin it for the majority.
Yeah, definitely. So you're spot on in every way with that. Just to kind of go back to like your kind of playing career again, in 2019, you made the greatest decision of your career by deciding to join Livi. What made you want to come to the club and join the best club in the Lothians? And is it true that you could have happened this summer before?
Yeah, so I think it was Neil Lennon as manager before, and I hadn't really been playing, so I think the club had been in contact with Hibs, and Neil said it wasn't going to happen. Coming towards my end of my time at Hibs, obviously, you know, the older you get, the more you realise my career is going to end soon. I want to play as much football as I possibly can. Paul Heckingbottom came in as the manager, and I think the first game he watched, I was actually in the stand with him because I was suspended, and he kind of kept to that same team for the remaining 10 or 11 games, whatever he was in charge for. And he wanted the club to go in a new direction. You know, he wanted to bring in younger players, he wanted to change the style of football and everything else. And I spoke to the club, you know, and it wasn't ever going to be a long-term contract I was going to get there. I came across, you know, and I spoke to Davey, and, you know, I wanted to stay in Scotland. You know, first and foremost, I wanted to stay in Scotland. Secondly, I wanted to go to a team that was going to allow me to play. And again, it was another challenge. The challenge here was very different to the one at Hibs, where Hibs was, you know, top four trying to get in Europe. Livingston was, you know, staying in the Premier League. And there's a club that was also going to evolve off the pitch. You know, you've seen all the things that have gone on around the stadium. You know, these things haven't happened just by luck. They've been planned. And, you know, also Davey was going to allow me to start to cut my teeth in coaching, something that I've got a great passion for. So everything for me, you know, coming here was right. You know, absolutely everything. And it's worked out, you know, at this time in my career to be the perfect move for me. because all the things that I was promised and that I'd be allowed to do, and the football I was expected to be able to play here, I've managed to do. I played a lot of football in the last 2 years, or 18 months to 2 years. So for me, it's been fantastic, and it's the best decision I could have made at that moment in time.
Now, this isn't your first appearance on Top Livy. You actually made a cameo appearance whilst we interviewed John Guthrie.
Yeah.
Now, what was this experience that decided to get you into the media, that little cameo?
Oh, you're trying to take credit for that, are you? I fell into the media by accident, if I'm honest. I remember I was given somebody called me, Doug at the BBC, about coming on doing the radio, and I never thought about doing it in my life. Media hadn't been something that I thought about, and I went and did the radio a couple of times, and then Sports Scene asked me to come on there and do something there, and it's kind of gone on from there. View from the Terrace also, the guys there have had me on there as well, and it's been fantastic for me because it's given me something different to do. Yes, I'm out of my comfort zone in doing it. I get more nervous about doing that than playing in any football match, as you can imagine, but I'm a bit of a weirdo where I like to be put out of my comfort zone, and I like people to tell me things that I won't be able to achieve and then go and achieve it. So yeah, you did play your part though, coming on there and ruining Guffers' interview. That's definitely a highlight of my media career.
So playing for Livingston, you grabbed your first goal for Livy at Tynecastle. For obvious reasons, as an ex-Hibs player, as well as the past experience, how sweet was that moment for you?
Oh, unbelievable. It was so weird because when the ball was coming in, and at no point in my career I thought, I'm going to score here. And, just coming on like, this is a goal. But I'd spoken to the boys before the match and said, I'm going to score today. And the boys were like, no chance. And listen, if I was somebody else and Marvin Bartley came to me and said, I'm going to score, I'd have been the same, no chance. But when it hit the back of the net, the actual, the silence before me hearing the Livingston fans was the best bit. Because obviously I've been getting pelters all game, and we hit the back of the net, and it's almost like they were all thinking, oh, anyone but him. Yeah, it was me. It was me. So I was absolutely glad to see it hit the net and just let out the old Ric Flair woo at the time. And, I looked into a few people's eyes and they were heartbroken. So yeah, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
That's one of the bits I remember most was watching Sports Scene, and you could audibly hear you doing the Ric Flair running about the pitch at Tynecastle, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I'm not used to scoring, so I had no celebration set up. So it just everything just came out, and that's what it was.
Now we need to clear something up, Marv. You had a race with the one and only Gary Malley whilst on mid-season training camp.
Yeah.
Will you admit that Gary beat you, or are you still maintaining that you won?
Twitter doesn't lie, mate. He's seen the votes. You see, he had to sing. Do you know what also happened? Kieran Brown, was it Kieran Brown? I think Kieran Brown was on the sprint, but they set me up. So Stretch actually knew. Gary knew where we were going, but obviously, that it was close. These things happen. But, when we looked at the line, I was slightly ahead. So no matter what happens in history, he sang, I didn't, and I was first, he was second. So unlucky to the big man, eh?
I still think Stretch got it by a nose, like.
Do you?
I thought Stretch got it by a nose.
I have to look back. As I said, I was cheating anyway. Absolutely cheating. I have to look back at it. But as I said, Twitter doesn't lie. Everyone was on voting. It was a fair vote. I didn't persuade anybody. I didn't ask. I won. So it is what it is.
So yeah, obviously the first season playing for the club, we secured a 5th place finish. Did you imagine the club having such a high position when your first season ended?
No, if I'm honest, no. It's all about coming here and finishing 10th in the league, and by the club staying in the Premier League, it was going to allow the club to build off the pitch. And that's always been the plan last season and this. So to finish 5th in the league was absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, it was cut short. But to finish 5th in the league was absolutely brilliant, and the boys are all buzzing, and it was a great achievement, fantastic achievement, and something we shouldn't play down because it's very, very difficult for a club of our size and our budget to do that. So yeah, it was brilliant, and nobody would have thought we were there. All the pundits were saying, oh, Livingston are going to be bottom 2. I think a majority of them had us in last place, to get relegated and whatever else. The abuse, not the abuse, but the kind of stuff that people would say to us about having the plastic pitch and the AstroTurf and blah, blah, blah. everything was against us. Everything was against us, and we finished 5th in the league. So, for the football club is absolutely fantastic, and that's not only us as players or staff, that's for the fans as well. Because we're all in it together. Because when we win, we're all buzzing, and when we lose, we all hurt just as much as each other. So I think that's what allows us to do what we do, because everyone actually does care. Everyone is invested in what Livingston Football Club do.
Obviously, you touched on there about how the season ended. Obviously, when the pandemic started to be spread about, what was the kind of mood like around the club? That kind of uncertainty of what was going to happen, and how did the club approach that?
Well, I remember Dale came out. We were due to play Hearts, I think it was. Dale came out, and I'd been struggling with an ankle injury. So from a selfish point of view, I remember at the end of that training session, Lyndon had ran back because I tackled him and I'd rolled my ankle again. So I was out of the game anyway. That was, I think, going to be on the Sunday. So when Dale came out, said the game was off. But at this point, I thought I was going to be like a 2-week break, 3-week break, and then it would all blow over. But for me, fantastic. My ankle couldn't heal. Swelling will go down, blah, blah, blah. But, the longer it seemed to go on and, there was almost like, we're not going back here. It's not going to happen, is it? And it was difficult for the club because it was a new situation for everybody. So we were given some runs and stuff to do. And we had to track our times and then put it into the group chat. So that, that's how the club went about it, just trying to keep the boys as fit as they possibly could. As I said, it was something new for everybody. No one was experienced in dealing with this sort of thing. So I think a lot of teams went down the same route and just, obviously got the boys to do some runs.
Now, you sparked social media into a frenzy at our Player of the Year awards, Marv, by demanding a transfer to Berwick Rangers. Yeah. Just how close was that move to happening, and what did Davey do to convince you to stay?
Well, I was basically there, me and Dago were nearly there, and I got a call from Davey and said he's going to make a new award and present it to me. So I quickly turned the car around and got ready for my acceptance speech. It wasn't acceptable what was going on. All these awards were flying out. I didn't have one. I wasn't happy. I let the club know that, and I requested the move, and Berwick were happy to take me. I think it was 15 quid that Livingston were getting. Davey accepted it reluctantly because I told him I wasn't playing again. That was me done. And then I think he decided to invest 20 quid in an award and, instead present that to me. Although I've not got the award yet because it was COVID and we did it over Zoom. I've not got the award. So Derek, when you see this, can me and Guffers get our awards for last season? What's going to happen is, new players are going to get the awards this season and they're actually going to get trophies when I don't have one. So can you guys actually tag Derek in this, tag Davey, tag Livingston in this, and say any danger? Like this was last year. It's not acceptable. So in fact, he's actually tricked me. If they don't give me an award, me and John are both going to Berwick. We'll go done with this.
Eric will be absolutely buzzing to get the pair of you for, 30 quid maybe? 30 quid for the two?
No, my value's gone down now. I'm nearly 35, so I think I'll probably about 7 quid for me. Guffers will probably be about a 5 or so. Yeah,
I thought that was what was upsetting you most, was that it was John Guthrie that was getting the awards, because you two seem to have a bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, Guffers is jealous of me. Yeah, it was, but he doesn't have the award now either, so it actually makes me feel a little bit better. But I do want an award. Like, what's going on? You don't often win, like, players player, or Guffers getting managers player and whatever else he got. We need some awards. Davey, come on, please.
Don't worry, we'll call out Derek on it. Don't you worry.
And Davey, what do you mean? Call Davey out as well. Tag him. Tag him in this. I want the award. He's always setting me up and telling Effie things that I do to Effie. I want the award. Davey, if you're watching, can I have an award, please?
Superbly put. Obviously, the start of this season, we had quite a tough start to the campaign. Obviously, Gary Hope would end up resigning. What was kind of current mood in the dressing room at that kind of time?
It's hard, when you see somebody come into their place of work and say that I can no longer take the club forward. It's hard, and as players as well, you take a lot of that on because we're the ones that when we cross the white line, it's upon us. The manager can try and implement whatever he wants to implement, but when we cross the line, we have to be accountable for ourselves. And the thing was, I definitely felt as a player out there on the pitch that we weren't actually playing that badly. We just weren't getting the rub of the green at times. And, and I knew it was going to change. Don't get me wrong. I didn't know we were going to, go on a run that we did go on, but I knew it was going to change. And I had full confidence in that. And, we were talking earlier about social media and people making comments. We were written off. We started being written off by our own people. I think a couple of tweets to some of the lads were, unbelievable. Considering the season we had the year before, it's almost like it's an expectance, go and do that again. Well, hang on a minute, we're punching well above our weight here. We are trying to do it again, but it is difficult. And I remember someone tweeted me as well saying, "Oh, you seem like you're more concentrated on coaching than playing." And I was like, "You don't know me. How the hell do you know what I'm concentrating on? You've got no idea what I'm concentrating on." And there's a stigma in football that you can only do one thing. Any other walk of life, it's all about bettering yourself or preparing yourself for the future. But in football, it's not. Do this now. You're a footballer. Go and do this. So when I started to get those messages, well, it was one message, got that message. It really, really did frustrate me. And that person obviously on the run we've been on and then getting to the cup final changed their tune. But as I say, I don't take things too personally. But that one there did annoy me. But yeah, it was difficult when Gary left. Very, very difficult. A lovely man and a manager who done a lot for us the season before. And helping us finish fifth. And as I said, it's a huge disappointment when somebody says, I can't do this anymore.
And you've mentioned since Davey's taken charge, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. The 14-game unbeaten run, reaching and leading the team out in the League Cup final and clinching another top six finish. How would you sum up this season so far, Marv?
Probably bittersweet. It's perfect that we're in the top six. Again, doing something that, let's be honest, we're not expected to be doing. But the huge problem for me, not problem, the upsetting part is the cup final. The opportunity that we had as a club and as players to go out there and win a cup final. And, I spoke to the boys before it and said, you'll never get a better opportunity winning a competition in Scotland as you will, today. And especially being at Livingston, but no matter where else you go, because normally it's going to be Celtic Rangers. You go and sign for Rangers, you're going to be playing against Celtic. Go and sign for Celtic, you're playing against Rangers. Difficult game. We're going into it against a team that are lower than us in the league, and Livingston Football Club will never ever be able to repeat. That will never happen again. It's not going to happen, and we've got such an opportunity here. And we went out there, and at the end of the day, we failed. And when I say it to people, they say, "Oh, but you did well to get there." But I'm not interested in that. I'm a winner. So getting to a final and getting the old pat on the back, "Oh, well done for getting here," not for me. And that's why I was so emotional after the final whistle, because I knew what an opportunity it was. For me personally, because how many more cup finals am I going to play in, but also for us as a club. And it was just one of those things that I tried to keep telling the boys before, we need to grasp this opportunity, and we didn't, because we lost the game. And yeah, it was tough, really, really tough. And I said to the boys, it's not something you recover from. It really isn't. Until you go to, I didn't recover from my last League Cup final loss until this one, and I've won a Scottish Cup in between that. So the only time I forgot about that League Cup final against Ross County that I lost when playing with Hibs was walking out again and leading the boys out in this one. And as I said, I've won a cup final between then and the championship title as well. So you don't get over that, and you shouldn't. There should be an element of pain that was always within you, knowing that we could have all done more, and hopefully that will drive the boys on to have successful careers. But never ever forget that pain, because I won't, and I hope my teammates won't.
You reckon you can use that disappointment though to kind of drive you on with the Scottish Cup? Obviously that's going to get played this season. You touched on the League Cup final defeat you had at Hibs. That could have almost acted as a bit of inspiration for the Scottish Cup as well. Do you think it could be similar with Livi?
Yeah, it can definitely lead you on to do great things. But it's almost like I said before, like a wounded animal. That's what we were. Going out in a Rangers game and the games after that. That's the kind of feeling that you have, and we still have now. And I said to the boys, those wounds will soon turn to scars. But then, it's like you got a scar every so often, you get a glimpse of it, and someone say, "Oh, what happened there?" And you remember it. And that's how we'll always be as players. It's a scar that nobody else can see, a wound that nobody else can see, but deep within yourself, you can see it. So hopefully, it drives us on to do really well in the Scottish Cup. But as I said, we can't forget that pain and think, "Oh, let's go and do this in the Scottish Cup, or go and do this in the league." But we want to go in the Scottish Cup and go as far as we possibly can, get to another final. As long as we win it, I'll be all right with that. If it means we get to a final and lose, then listen, I'm not for that. I've got no more tears to cry. So, listen. Hopefully, it does drive us on. And like you said, the Scottish Cup is another great competition, and hopefully we can go far in it.
Yeah, obviously this season as well has been up and down at times. How strange has it been doing so with no fans there? Obviously, empty arenas, empty, no spectators really. Like, how surreal has that been?
Yeah, at the start, it was kind of, I just want to get back to playing football. Let's get back to playing football. However we get back to playing, let's do that. And then after a while, just like, you're missing the fans. Even fans booing me, like fans hating me, saying you're rubbish, this, you're that. I miss that. I miss it. Like, it's so, there's just nothing there. Like, football without fans is, no matter what any player says, is never ever the same. You know, whether they're home or away fans, no matter what it is, it's never ever the same. And, you know, we need them back in. We definitely need them back in. And hopefully next season, all fans will be back in, because, you know, the first couple of games of the season, as professional as you try and be, it felt like a kick around with your mates. It felt like a bounce game. You know, it's so strange. But yeah, fans make a huge difference. As I said, that's fans cheering or booing. You know, I'll take either.
On average, how many times do you reckon you're going to hear a sports scene related shout from the stands when fans are back in, Marv?
Well, I'm hearing it from players. You know what? Just they can join the queue and then add to that banter. The amount of times this always happens to me, right? So if I'm playing, a player will get chirpy and be like, "Oh, go and do sports scene," and then I'm doing sports scene, and someone will tweet me like, "Oh, go and play football. You don't know what you're talking about." So I can't win. No matter what I'm doing, it's wrong. I'm just like, come on, you know, let me live. Chipper, Brian Rice said to me the other day, I think I got a foul that he wasn't happy with, and he was like, "Oh, you're only giving him that foul because he's on sports scene." Like, I'm not on sports scene tomorrow, actually. So, you know, I'm sure the referee's not saying, "Oh, let me give a foul to Marvin because he's on sports scene tomorrow." I was like, "You guys fouled me," and he wasn't having it. But after the game, he had a hug, you know, hug and made up. But yeah, the sports scene shout, I'm hearing all the time. So if I hear it from the fans as well, you know, as I said, you know, I've heard it so many times now, it's fine.
Are you also looking forward to having the fans back so they can start to try and crowd out David Martindale shouts from the sidelines? I don't know if they will completely, but it'll help, right?
Oh, anything will help. You know, I'm hearing hugs in at the minute. But Davies, actually, his shouts aren't as bad as last season, because I think now he's like manager, he's got a lot of other things to worry about. That's been a blessing in disguise. But when I hear him shout my name, I'm just like, I look across like, yeah. And no matter what he says, I just put my thumbs up. He's going to see this now. I'm like, I knew you did that. I put my thumbs up, and he's just screaming. I'm like, Davey, man, you're worse than my mum. My mum even said to me, "Who's that man that keeps shouting?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Davey. That's the gaffer." But to be fair, I can't say too much to him, because when I start shouting, my voice goes really squeaky as well. So, you know, I can't name to him too much because he'll bite back. But yeah, get the fans back in and drown him out. I've asked the referee a couple of times this season just to send him off. Then I realised it'd be in the stand and higher up, so it'll probably be even worse. So it's probably best he stays pitch level.
How do like the players like react to that? Because obviously, seen on like social media that like the likes of Julian Serrano doesn't speak much English. How does he sort of react when Davey just keeps on screaming Julian at him? Is he frightened or just confused? Or
He smiles. He's smart. He doesn't know what's going on. He just smiles. Julian just smiles. Julian's hilarious, by the way. Like, his English he's a lot better at understanding it than speaking it. But Davies, sometimes he's shouting, I don't understand it. And I'm English is my first language. So what chance has Julian got? And he's from France. So Julian just smiles. And then he'll be like, "Davey, what did you say?" And David will be like, "Don't worry about it." Like, honestly, like, yeah, Julian just smiles at it. And another one for doing that's Effie. Effie's English is perfect if you're telling him something he wants to hear. But as soon as it's something Effie doesn't want to hear, I don't understand. I'm like, "Effie, come on, man. Come on." But him and Davey have got the weirdest relationship ever. They're like the best of friends. Like, they should never go together. But whenever you see one, the other one's not far behind around the stadium. They're always playing tech ball together. Or I've never seen Effie speak as much in my life. So yeah, him and Davey, a weird relationship.
Effie's obviously a part of your coaching staff with the reserve squad. How excited are you to be given that opportunity? Obviously, I think reserve football's kind of been kept to a minimal, or if played at all. How excited are you to get back into the swing of things in that aspect?
Yeah, and then that opportunity from the club and from Davey was fantastic. You know, as I've never hidden away from, you know, what I want to do after football. So to be given that experience was absolutely brilliant. And to have somebody like Effie and Gary, you know, helping me do that made it even better, because, you know, they've got their own ideas and we all work really well together. You know, Effie's obviously played at the highest level. So, you know, having someone even around for the boys to, you know, look at and hear talk and get advice from, you know, there's not many better players, you know, in a better position to do that than him. And obviously, you know, Gary's obviously played lower level football, but you know, his eye for training and the goalkeeper stuff is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, he's a great example of, you don't have to be, no disrespect to him, you know, a top player to be a brilliant coach. And he'll go on to be a fantastic goalie coach. There's no doubt about it. He's so lazy, but he's doing his badges now. But he'll be an asset to anyone. So yeah, for me, on a personal level, it's been fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the coaching side of things and speaking to the boys almost on the other side of the fence. And it's an experience that, as I said, I probably wouldn't have got many other places. So to do that alongside my football has been fantastic and something that's, helped me grow as a manager.
Who do you think you're going to have more trouble managing, the players or Effie?
Effie, 100%. 100% Effie. He joins in with them sometimes as well. Which for them is like unbelievable. He's out there nutmegging them and dropping his shoulders and stuff. Wow, he's still got a bit, hasn't he? I'm like, the guys play at the highest level. So even small things like that, where else would a Livingston reserve player get to play with somebody who's played against Messi? And by the way, was on a winning team or won the African Cup of Nations. So these little experiences they get from having someone like him around is, absolutely fantastic.
What are the targets for the remainder of the current campaign then, Marv?
Win as many games as possible. I kind of said the other day, against all odds, we're in the top 6 again. Where nobody would have put us, and now it's kind of, we go into the Hibs game on Saturday before an international break. We want to try and win that game, and then it's the next 5 games after that. Let's win that and see where it takes us. There's no pressure on us. There's no pressure on us now. Now we're in the top 6. We just want to try and finish as high as we possibly can, and on our day, obviously out of probably Rangers and Celtic, out with those two, if we turn up, we've got a good chance of getting something out of the game. Again, against Rangers and Celtic, I'm not conceding the results to them, but obviously we need a little bit of luck along the way. We need them to have an off day and us to have a really good day. And again, we can take points off them as we've shown this season anyway. So yeah, that's what we want to do. Just win as many games as possible out of the next 6 and see where it takes us. And if that's Europe, then, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Marv, it's been an absolute joy getting to chat to you today. It goes without saying that all the guys at Talk Livi wish the team the very best for the rest of the season, and just thanks very much for joining us.
No, thanks a lot, and keep up the good work. The boys actually do love the podcast, so nice class stuff. Keep it up, and again, thanks for having me on it.
Livingston. Our love will never die. West Lothian, West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ambervale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.